so here we're going to see if my boots are really waterproof as Timberline claims. And I'm heading to our emergency drain. And hopefully, there's a cricket in there. And, of course, it's not finished, so it's actually higher than the water. I think I have a broom somewhere. Yeah. Behind me, I have a broom. Let's see if we can help this a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so it's the first time we use this. Yay!
One last thing I wanted to show you is a web stiffener and what it is. But first, let's look at the anatomy of an I-joist. So an I-joist has two flanges, flange, and a web. So by web stiffener, it means we're making the web stronger. That's in situations when the joist might flip or bend, any situation that the web might be compromised. In our case, we're using a load-bearing web stiffener, and that means we tighten a couple pieces of OSB, preferably as wide as the flange, and then they get nailed together, and that's pretty much the web stiffener. If you notice here, we have a gap below, and that's on purpose. The reason for that is effectively it allows a quicker reaction time for the point load of the joist. When you have the gap below, it means it's a load bearing, and it can strengthen the joist up to 1,500 pounds at the point load. Another situation you might see this is if the flange above doesn't touch the connectors. They're typically mostly always attached with a Simpson connector or something. If the connector ended up being a little bit too wide and it doesn't touch above, it is recommended to put the web stiffener with the gap above. And then one last thing I want to show you is here. We're here at the cantilever. You will notice that the gap is above, and we're using a load bearing. But I might have mentioned before that our Simpson connectors are backwards, and the purpose of this joist is to withstand uplift, not the weight of the house necessarily. Finally, after like 2 or 3 months of wait, we finally have our subfloor. It is 1 1/8 Advantech. It is like the highest quality subfloor you can get and the thickest. The thickness will make for a very nice, sturdy, squeak-free experience. So since we've been waiting for like a couple months or 2 or 3, we put temporarily sheathing on top of the floor system of the tiny house. So we're gonna try to accomplish that this weekend. Most likely we will be leaving this subfloor there until next year, so it'll have to survive winter. We'll put it in place, cover it, and winterize it. Most likely, even if the metal guy comes in, we'll try to finish the floor system for the main house, and so we'll attempt to do the same thing. So it's late August. We probably still have, if hopefully it's like last year, we might have another 3-4 months of work. So we're back in business. We got our subfloor. And we actually made a mistake. The first mistake we made is actually, you see the subfloor, the layout actually calls for a joist right here. And the mistake was that we measured the layout from this side to this side. So we ended up putting it in the wrong place. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to put another joist to match the layout, and then at the end of the day, the house will be just stronger. It'll just have one more joist. I also wanted to show you this super, I don't know, maybe our structural engineer will be proud, maybe not, probably not. See this guy? This guy is about 1.5 feet. Notice how it has like web stiffeners. It's mostly web stiffener, actually. It actually has hangers too. So at this point in time, we're kind of making fun of ourselves for putting such a tiny I-joist with hangers, web stiffeners, and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, the house is stronger, and that's all that matters.
So we're down to our last 2 pieces of subfloor, and this is in the cantilever. So this area of the house is pretty special because it's the riskiest one when it comes to fire hazard, wind, dust, insects. Everything can come in through here because it's open from the bottom and the sides. So we need to protect it really well. So the first thing we are doing is we are applying our spray foam, the one that is fire retardant. And we're applying it in all the perimeter to make sure that we are closing any gaps that we may have in here. So that's the first thing we're doing. The next thing is going to be filling these gaps with Rockwool insulation. So Rockwool is fireproof, so that's going to give us some fire protection in here. And I think that's it for here. Now, let me show you some tools that we have found really helpful for this process. So we have these spacers. So they have turned out to be pretty cool. So you have the different sizes. This is 3/16, 1/4, 1/8. So you just put them on the space that you need, and it's going to give you the correct gap. And then, in this case that we need to have this perfectly flush, then the hand planer, cordless hand planer has been just amazing. So those are some good tools. I just got this one, and I have to say I'm excited about it. It's so good, so easy when you do cuts in this area. It's pretty easy to clean everything. And my final note is on this tool. So this is Simpson Quick Dry, and we have it with the Makita 3500, which was the most powerful one if I remember correctly. Well, here's the thing. We tested this tool in a thinner wood and regular 2x4s, and it was great. All the screws went in like butter. But when it comes to the Advantech 1 1/8 subfloor, it just didn't work. I don't know if it's specific to Advantech or if it's 1 1/8 thickness, but when we were trying to put the screws, this has only one speed and it's going really fast. And we found that we saw smoke coming out. So it seems that it's burning the wood, and it just takes a lot of effort to get the screw in. It's much better if you do this with just your regular drill in a slower speed, and it enters more easily. You feel it catching the wood immediately, and it's just less muscle effort to do it. We are done filling the cavities with Rockwool, and I would have to say this is the most zen activity we have had so far with the house. It's very relaxing. So just a couple of notes. When it comes to Rockwool, you want for the bats to be tight but not compressed, because they need air to work. The insulation works with air as well. So if you, for example, if you push the corner to make it go in, make sure to come back and fluff it so everything is at the same level. So we're done here now. Let's put those on the floor and be done with it. So we are almost done with the subfloor. These are some of the last steps we are doing. So we have these gaps, and the first thing we did was apply Lexel to seal the gaps in there, and that's to protect from it's air sealing and preventing any insects from building their house in there. We also apply it on the threaded rods. The next step is to cover with Rockwool, and the same principle. You want it tight, you want it snug, but you don't want it compressed. And then we are going to cover it with duct tape, just regular duct tape. Now, this is because we want to know what's in that hole rather than having it open and something building a house out of our hole. The other thing is you will notice that this is already inside the house, but we are taking all these air sealing and waterproofing measures because it's September and it's most likely that this will stay open during the winter season, so we need to add some protection.
And we are almost done with our subfloor. Look at this. This is awesome. It's not even moving. A huge difference from what we had been dealing with. So anyway, the point of this is I wanted to show you this duct tape we're putting along all the seams. And the reason for this duct tape is to protect against weather. I'll explain in a moment. The second thing we are doing is what we'll probably call SIP 3.0. The weakest points in a house are at the very bottom, in the transition between the foundation and the framing, and at the very top, the transition between the wall and the roof. So we are taking extra measures to make sure we get these details airtight, in addition to having to survive the winter, and in addition to helping us protect against insects. So what will take place after this, and it'll be the next episode, or in a few episodes, who knows, we'll be lifting up the walls here, and then eventually sheeting will come in here. We'll have our exterior insulation, and we will have a slight overhang here with a 4-inch of Rockwool insulation, and then the siding. So as you can tell, this is a little bit of overkill, but I'd rather be overkill than too safe. There's no easier time to put this than now. So here we have Marcela finishing up the last details here on the subfloor, but we are done with this episode. We started in July 4th. We took a whole week. We built the floor system. It took us another 3 months to get the subfloor, but it's finally done. We've learned a few very important things, and they may be rookie things we've learned, but we'll pass them along. So, for example, we highly recommend you have like a layout stick. We made a couple mistakes, especially when we built the floor system. We ended up making the house slightly longer, like by 1.5 inches, and slightly wider by 1.5 inches. So basically the width of a 2x. And that ended up screwing us a little bit because we have the 4-foot 4x8. And so here we have 8, 8, 8. And then we had an extra 1.5 inches. And so we had to do trickeries to make it work. So we ended up cutting one of these big ones in half so that it would fit. Similarly on this side. So that was a huge lesson that we didn't think about when we were building the floor system.
We were actually happy. They were like, oh, well, we have a house 1.5 inches larger. And then it's like, oh.
Yeah, we were like, oh, it doesn't matter. We can make the house bigger as long as we don't make it smaller. Anyway, and then another piece of advice is definitely when you can, try to use that tongue and groove. I mean, you're also paying for it, so it makes a huge difference. Mm-hmm. Because of that mistake that I just mentioned, we had to cut this 4x8s in like half, or so that they would fit perfectly. And by doing that, we're technically also removing the tongue and the groove. So it works, but it's not ideal.
Yeah, we also had to do the gap manually since there was no tongue and groove, and it could be a pain when you have applied already install one of the subfloors and then you don't have the gap. We had to use the oscillating saw to do it. It was just more work.
Yeah. Another thing we should say about this floor is the Advantech 1/8 subfloor is like the highest end that they sell. It's incredible, to be honest. It's pretty flat right now. It's rained some, and it still looks almost like new.
Yeah, you can jump and nothing moves. It's pretty sturdy.
It's perfect.
Yeah. It's also forgiving. Like for the imperfections we had, that some joists were not exactly at the same level. With the subfloor mistake, it kind of compensates for those little mistakes.
Yeah, we put the level here and it looks perfectly flat. So we did make a little mistake over there. That one's a little higher. But it's not a big deal, at least for us, because all of the house will have tile and it will have radiant heat on top of this. So we're going to probably fix this through the thin set coming up someday in the future. One more thing we should probably mention is the tools.
Yes.
For the subfloor, you might have seen me struggle a little. the Simpson Quick Grip.
Quick drive.
Quick Drive. The Simpson Quick Drive worked well on Dubai's piece of cake, but as soon as we tried to do it here, it caused smoke. It didn't seem to grab too well. When we tried the router on this floor, it also caused smoke. So it must be the Advantech subfloor that's so thick, so strong, that rather than going through, it just causes smoke and whatnot. So
The router caused the same thing. It was burning the wood. So I think that all the tools are good. It's just the subfloor is so hard that it's special.
We'll just have to do it through by hand with a drill, and it's easier too anyway. So yeah.
The planer was also key in this in the subfloor part. I would say it helped us make all the gaps the right size, and the spacers were also pretty useful.
And so we're pretty much done with this episode. We are done with this episode. We are going to be preparing this area for winter because we don't have a steel guy yet. He said he'd come and do it, but he hasn't come and do it, as you can see. So there's a high possibility we'll leave this like this for the entire winter. Yeah. And so we're going to be preparing it with a sheet, with house wrap on top of it. So that's why we ended up going overboard on the duct tape and waterproofing and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm sure you will see this because we are moving on to other things like the shed and the big house and all that kind of stuff. So this is not it for this particular episode, for this particular side, but we might not see progress on this side until next year.
Until next season, yeah.
So anyway, that is it. Thank you for joining. If you made it this far, I'm sure you want to subscribe, right? Anyway, see you in the next one.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.